Folks, hope you are having an unbelievable start to your Saturday. We are ready for UB game day. It's not your Bulls. It's not my Bulls. It is our Bulls for a big game day at Bunts Bobcats in Ohio. Again, we're joined by Mike B, Kevin M, myself, Maniac. Folks, gents, big UB game day on tap. Mike, we'll let you start facing your Bobcats. It's a big showdown in the MAC.
Yeah, this is a huge game and even bigger after Akron's loss last night against Bowling Green. The top half of the conference outside of the number one spot is wide open to almost anyone at this point in time. You mentioned my Bobcats. I love UB, but I went to Ohio. They're number one for me in every situation. They're rolling hot, 6-game winning streak entering today. They can get in second place with a win over UB, and it's a game that was decided on a final shot the first time around. So this was an exciting matchup just a little while ago, and I think we're going to have another good one tonight.
Kev, let us know. Saturday.
It's tough to have UB going into Ohio, where they generally play really well, and taking an upset victory over them. I have the BPI ranking 60% Ohio, 40-ish% to UB. For me, it all comes down to that number of not having a win against a winning team, and that's in out of conference play. Although there's 2-2, very limited, but that's in conference. That's a huge thing to say. As these 3 games are very much like a mini MAC tournament here for UB. You have Ohio, you have Akron, and you have Kent. Could very well be a path that you would have to play to win a MAC championship. It is almost set up that it could actually be literally almost the path. So you need to come away with 2-1 if you're UB here, guys. There's no other way around it. You can't 1-2 does not have me confident winning only 1 game against the top team. So I think that's the best way to put it. And you know what? UB needs to play well against established veteran players. Jason Preston presents a huge matchup problem for the Bulls.
No doubt. Shout out to our correspondents join us. Obviously, we got Kev taking care of things at home with the fam. We got Bun join us during the workday. He's got swirling winds he's dealing with. and speaking of the workday, it's for UB. It's about putting in those work down low on the boards. I mean, obviously, they did so against CMU, and despite some gaudy 3-point shooting, we're able to pull off a double-digit victory. It's like you said, Kev, the stretch of games down the stretch here for UB. It's about going 2-1. You look at these two teams. 9-1 in their last 10 combined games. Only loss with UB coming to top place Toledo. So with that said, I know, Mike, you might have to run here. So what's the key to stymieing Ohio for UB today then, obviously, since you have that perspective?
Well, it's a much different answer than it would have been a year ago. A year ago, it was just stop Preston or Vanderplas, and you basically stopped Ohio. The young guys on this team have developed. They're playing much better overall. They've had games without Preston, and Mark Sears comes in and really didn't miss a beat taking over Preston's role. Dwight Wilson is an added X factor inside. He is a big man that's a double-double machine for the Bobcats. So really, the biggest thing that you have to do to stop Ohio, you have to just try to limit them. You want to frustrate them. They're scoring around 80 points a game. They have 6 guys that average around 10 points a game. So really, you have to slow them down. The Bobcats want to play fast. They want to score points. But if you can't slow them down, you're going to struggle. And honestly, I could see UB winning today. I definitely think UB has a chance, but I think they're going to have to shoot the 3 much better than they have at most points this season. This is an Ohio team that has a bunch of guys that can shoot the ball well. Preston can shoot. You have Mark Sears, who has a good shot. You have Ben Roderick, London McDay. This Ohio team is much better than they were in the past. I picked UB the first time, and Ohio ended up winning by 1, I believe. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Yeah, 1 point win.
This is going to be another game where I think if I had to give an edge, I'd probably say Ohio by 4 or 5, but I could see it going either way, guys.
Well, speaking of edges, before we get to Kevin's input on what UB needs to do to get a win over the Bobcats, We don't want any bad edges when it comes to your self-grooming. So make sure you're checking out our friends at Manscaped, manscaped.com. Use promo code TRAINWRECK for 20% off and free shipping. And Kev, obviously we know what the details are for UB. Depth scoring. Recently, the three-point shooting's gone ice cold. They've been better inside. Can they put it all together for a big road win over the Bobcats today?
It's challenging. I mean, UB had the game in hand with 38 or 48 seconds up 75-74 against Ohio, and then just didn't play defense down the stretch and let in aforementioned Wilson tip in for the 76-75. They had a possession to go toward the end of the game and just completely botched it, as we've unfortunately seen a couple times under the 4-minute mark for UB, and the struggles continue there. That needs to completely change today. I mean, it's going to take stretches like that. We know UB comes in hot after the break. They do every game, whether it's Toledo, whether it's Ohio, whether it's a weaker opponent. So UB's really good out of the break, which is what you like to see. We ended up going 9-0 against the weaker opponents. That's tick box number one, like we said on the last pregame show, and that happened. You now need to hone in, go 3-0 down. The 2-1's acceptable, but 3-0 down the stretch to put yourself. If UB does that, they put themselves in the 2 seed playing Miami, a redemption game from last year. Much different case than having to play Bowling Green, Ohio in the first round, in which you could get bounced again in the first game. So get yourself into position right here, right now, to play a team that you can go ahead and take care of in the first round and check off one of those potential 3 games that you have in Cleveland. So that's really what's important here.
Most definitely. Mr. Bunt, any thoughts before I know you got to get back to it?
Yeah, I'm just hoping for a good game today. I'm busy at work, but hopefully I can multitask, watch the game on my phone while doing a ton of work here. Hopefully none of my bosses are watching this right now, so I don't get in trouble. But I think we're going to see a good game today, and I think both of these teams have a chance in the MAC tournament. Main difference is that I think Ohio's a little bit more well-rounded team, while UB, they've been missing shooters all year, and I think that's going to be their kryptonite going into March. But I'll just make a quick pick just because I have to get going after this. I'll pick Ohio today in a close one, 82-78. I give them the edge just because I think their top players overall are better than UB's top players overall, and I think their depth and especially their shooting gives them an advantage in this game. But hopefully we'll get a good one, and like you guys know, I'll roll with whoever wins in this game either way. So have a good one, guys, and keep the show going.
Well, it's definitely love to hear it. The stampede never stops, even when the Bobcats get those claws out.
I don't. See you later, Mike. Thanks for popping on. I don't hate Mike's prediction there. It's tough for me to say with a record of 0-6 against winning records that they're going to go on the road in a place that UB's never really won a lot in their history. Recent, more modern history, they have a few W's at, but not very many. Even under their good programs, it would struggle in Ohio, even under those Oats teams. The game at home was the one they needed to win. I said they would split 1-1 in this series. They lost the one I thought they would win. It's going to be tough for me to think that they're going to be able to handle Ohio at their home with them having so many games that are 4 games in 8 days, as we said last time. I do have Ohio in this one as well, 80-77. So I was thinking something similar to Mike. And I just don't think they're going to get it done down the stretch again. And it's proven that they haven't. Really, what they need to do, though, is hone in and win the final 2 home games, which with that weak Akron team with one player and a player in Kent who's missing their second best player who took over against UB late in the game in that one, and Michael Nuga. So there's two winnable home games coming up that they absolutely need to take, and that's how I have them finishing 2-1. As we'll probably get into those games at a different point, but I just don't see it today, Maniac. I don't see them getting it done, 80-77. But more importantly, the 2 games to follow, I do have UB wins to wrap up we'll call a interesting season here in Buffalo, but one where I need to see them be at least 11-6 going into the MAC tournament, probably sitting in the 3 or the 4 seed.
It really has been an interesting season, regardless of how you want to say it. But I think that UB goes into that convocation center. Here's the thing. It's exactly like you said. UB has not historically played well there. I think it's best to describe them as inconsistent all year because, earlier in the year, the 3-point shooting was hot. The inside game was not. Now the inside game is. The 3-point shooting has gone cold. Defense is very similar. With that said, it's a 2-point spread. And I'm just looking at the game they played at Alumni Arena. UB fell behind and never got back out in front again. They fell behind by about 10, and then they kept them at 5-3. One possession game. They tied it up with like 3-4 minutes to go, but couldn't get over that hump. I think the game plays out reverse. I think UB gets a strong start, and they kind of ride it, even despite maybe some inconsistent stretches from this lineup. So give me UB 84, Ohio 79 when it's all said and done in this thing. So I think we all agree it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a battle, but I think that UB rides a strong start in this game to an eventual Bulls victory.
Who do you have leading the way? Who do you think comes up big? Like last game, it was Segura against Toledo, and he didn't come up big in the moments I needed him to. Who do you see coming up big in this one to get that big dub?
It's kind of funny because like they all have personalities that can take over, but I think one guy is just going to assert today is going to be Jonathan. I think that it's kind of it's at the enough's enough part of the season for him. He's played the team ball all year. Not to say you want to get away from the system, but when you have the confidence that he does, that every time he touches the ball inside the arc, he basically can score. He's a good 3-point shooter, but whenever he gets that entry pass, his mindset is that he can score. So I think we're going to see some aggression out of him. I think we see over 16 attempts from Jonathan Williams today. Is that crazy? Is that a crazy number?
No, probably not. No, I mean, the way Ohio plays, they're letting up 73 points per game. They're not particularly great on defense, kind of similar to a UB team. UB's played pretty well on defense lately, but Ohio's not historically a great defensive team, at least recently. They score a lot. They're very similarly focused to UB. The biggest difference here is the rebounds. Like last game, they did not win the edge as I was looking for. 34 rebounds is all Ohio averages per game. We need UB to dominate that department, over 10 rebounds more per game. That's the biggest difference to me. It's a Josh Imbala day. So that's really where I'm looking at the rebound. 10 plus 10 on the boards. They need to get that. Though the Toledo game, did they end up like plus 20 and still losing by 10? I think it was something like that.
Yeah, absurd. That is just absurd. No other way to describe it.
Yeah, I see Rob Ryan in there saying we're going to get a win today. I'm glad I hear the optimism. I'm just always looking for ways that we can, we can take a W.
This kind of right now, and I know they haven't had a similar amount of success, but the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs played 2 incomplete games. And right now, the Buffalo Bulls have played a bunch of incomplete games, but similarly, you've seen the parts of the equation that if they put it together, if they play that tenacious defense, if they play like they played the first 15 minutes of each half against Toledo, and then put the 3-point scoring in, put the down low hustle in, then they can compete with anybody in the MAC, and we know that. They haven't been able to execute against the top teams, but right now is the time to do so for sure. So I think that's why you're seeing that optimism, obviously, Kev.
Yeah, we're going to hit our stride and go on a tear through March and April. They have the talent. Honestly.
Do you imagine April basketball for UV?
I haven't seen the way the tournament shapes out, but I don't know what round that would put them into April.
That's all I'm saying. It's just April basketball for UV, baby.
That would be like, is that like the Sweet 16 or is that further?
Let's look it up real quick.
Elite 8? Is that how far are we going into April? But no, they have the talent to do so. They have a really good starting 5, especially with Hardnett showing up lately, and a guy I was critical of early on this year, and I can admit he's developed, and that's really what we're looking for out of our Hardnett, and that's a really good story. It's the guys that are coming off the bench that are absolutely hurting UB right now. They're not getting anything. Skogman's probably my favorite player coming off the bench. The way he's developed and the way he's played, he can give UB some minutes. I don't hate Bertram in the game, believe it or not. When he's in there, I'm fine with the 10, 12 minutes he's getting. I think he can do some things well. It's at the guard spot that they're absolutely there's no one behind Segu and Graves. There's no one there. When Nickelberry comes in, it's just helter skelter. It's just
Nickelberry is kind of spinning a roulette wheel a little bit, just because the way his style is kind of like a bull in a china shop. He's going to come in and play his game, and it's either going to be good or bad. It's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation, I guess.
And they have more forwards coming in next year. So the forward position is looking really good. One that, if there's a strength in Weitzel's recruiting department, it's his forward development and recruiting, which we like to see, which something that we need in the MAC, though, is better guard play behind Segu and Graves, and the team really needs to focus on that. So we're going to see what happens in this one when they're playing a really savvy guard in Jason Preston, a guy that historically has crushed them even in their good years. So we'll see what happens in this one, Maniac. But it's something that I want to see them lock down. Like, look, Marianne Jackson took over. We've seen Michael Nuga take over in the Kent game. These are things we need to see happen down the stretches, that they know that Preston's going to get the ball, double him up, and make somebody else beat you. That's what I need to see in this game, and I need to see that rebounding edge come to fruition, like we did in Toledo. But we need to see that actually equal points, because Ohio, the last time they played them, Ohio, for being a poor rebounding team, rebounded particularly well, 38-34 in edge. So UB was actually at Ohio's rebounding numbers, and Ohio actually out-rebounded them as a poor rebounding team. So that's something that we need to see happen, especially with the strength of UB being Janathan Williams, Josh Mbala, Laquel Hardnett. There's just no way with those three you should be being out-rebounded ever, Maniac. That's why they're first in the nation in rebounding. We can't lose the rebounding advantage today.
Cannot. Got to exert our will down low. Got to play to our strengths. And we were talking about making runs. East Egmon's got it figured out. Let's see if we can get this team to perform for 40 minutes in a big road matchup. Speaking of big matchups, Sabres currently down 1-0. Intermission incoming. Make sure you check out Crossing Swords for that. But a huge shout out to my co-host, Kevin. Huge shout out to you guys for tuning in. Let's get those errands done, folks. Saturday, Home Depot, Lowe's, making runs to Wegmans. It's all over. It's about getting those errands done and those horns up. Let's go, Bulls.